Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Middleware Technologies. So today in this video, we'll be using the SASL based GSSI API authentication mechanism in order to authenticate with the OpenLDAP server. So this video is basically a continuation to the last video wherein we have seen how we can set up the Kerberos V authentication system. So let us see how we can use that system in order to authenticate with the LDAP server. So I am currently using two servers, the uBreplica and the uBscratch. So uBreplica server is going to be the master KDC server wherein the Kerberos V system is going to be running, and uBscratch is the LDAP server wherein the LDAP service is going to be running, and we will be using the same server, that is uBscratch, in order to authenticate. So basically we are going to use uBscratch as a client machine for both the KDC server and the LDAP server. So this is the basic setup that we are going to use for this demo. So this is my uBscratch server and this is the uBreplica server. So before going into the demo, let us try to understand what is SASL. So SASL, as called simple authentication and secure layer, is basically a framework which provides support for multiple authentication mechanisms. Okay, like if an application protocol wants to communicate with the LDAP server, so it can use the SASL framework in order to communicate with the LDAP server. So SASL framework provides us with a set of libraries that are launched by the application client in order to authenticate with the respective server, authentication mechanism server. So let's say if you have an LDAP server which communicates on the Kerberos V which wants to communicate with the Kerberos V protocol, so we can use the SASL framework in that case in order for the application protocol to communicate with. So it is a protocol developed by IETF for the purpose of providing an extensible and pluggable authentication framework primarily for non-web related protocols. So non-web related protocols in the sense the LDAP protocol, the IMAP protocol, that is the email client that uses. So those kind of protocols widely use this framework. So as I said, it decouples the authentication mechanism from the application protocols. So Cyrus SASL, this is the software or the implementation that we are going to install in our machine for the application, for allowing the application to use that SASL framework. So now let us go and understand what is GSSAPI. So GSSAPI is basically generic security service application programming interface. It is a network-oriented protocol for authenticating a client to the server using Kerberos. The GSSAPI mechanism should work with all the clients and servers which implement support for it, regardless of the actual server protocol used, such as IMAP, given the protocol was designed for use with the SASL framework. So basically what it means is that the protocol which is used by the client and server should be able to support the SASL framework. Now let us go and try to understand the Kerberos authentication architecture, that is the client server architecture with the OpenLDAP server in that environment. So we have seen in our last video how the client basically authenticates with the authentication server and gets a response which is a ticket granting ticket, and this ticket granting ticket is And this ticket granting service is further sent as a request to the ticket granting server with the service which it wants to access, and then the ticket granting server is going to send a response back to the client with the service principal. So this service principal can further be used by the client in order to communicate with the LDAP server. So that is the high level architecture which is like followed by the client in order to communicate with the LDAP service using the Kerberos V authentication protocol. Now let us go to our procedure in order to implement this authentication mechanism. So as a first step, what we need to do is we need to have a working Kerberos V authentication system up and running. So in our last video, like we have seen like how we can compile and install the Kerberos V authentication system on the Ube replica server. So we will just launch the respective daemons on the server in order to start up the Kerberos V authentication system. So let me go into my Ube replica server. So this is the Ube replica server. So now let us start the services on the Kerberos V server. So here I am starting the KRB5 KDC daemon in order to start the ticketing service. And we can just start the kadmin daemon also. So both the services are up and running now. You can just verify the process. So they are looking good. So we have our Kerberos V authentication services up and running on Ube replica server. Now let us go to our next step, that is creating a service key with a principal for LDAP service. So basically we want to use the LDAP service. So that LDAP server needs to have some principal that is the entity with the service key created in the Kerberos V system. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the kadmin.local, which is the failsafe program in order to communicate with the kadmin server or the kadmin service. So with this kadmin client utility, like we are going to create a principal for the LDAP service. So let me first launch the kadmin local interface. So we are into that interface kadmin.local, and here like we are going to add principal for LDAP service. So we are using the add principal command with the LDAP service name. This is the LDAP service name slash on the server name or the fully qualified domain name of the server on which that LDAP service is running @ this is the rel. So we want to create this service principal in the following rel. So this is how like we can create the service principal in the Kerberos V system. So let me give a key for the password for this service. And the service principal is created. We can just list the principal. So you can see the LDAP service principal is created. Now let us go into our documentation and let us see like the next step, step 3, add LDAP service entry to the keytab file. So basically whatever LDAP service key we have created, we need to add that into a keytab file. So keytab file is basically a file which contains the keys related to the principals so it is basically encrypted in a form so that it is not in a readable format. But this keytab file needs to be secured because it contains our service principle or the whatever principles that we want we created. If we want to add those principles keys, we are going to create this keytab file for that. So basically this is a sensitive file that we need to create, and we need to also make it protected. So now what we are going to do is we are going to use the kt add utility in order to add the LDAP principle into that keytab file. So here, like you can see the entry for principal, this is LDAP with encryption, like this is the encryption has been added to the file, and the same entry has been added with a different encryption algorithm also. So this is what you need to ensure, that the keytab file has been created with the following entries. Okay, so if you go into get out of the client and try to look at the file user local var krb5 kdc and krb5 keytab. So the file has been created, and you can just try to read the content of this one. So it contains your LDAP service key related content. So let me clear my screen and go to the documentation. So now we have created our service principle, and we have added that service principle into the keytab file. So the next step, that is step 4, is to allow the SLAPD service access to the keytab file. So basically, like what we are going to do is we are going to copy the keytab file to the LDAP server and provide the LDAP service, that is the SLAPD service, access to the keytab file. So basically the service which is the service which is running on the LDAP server, in this case the LDAP service, needs to have access to that file so that it can send the service key whenever the authentication happens to the server's Wi-Fi system, because a service cannot send a password like a user for authentication. So that is the reason we need to create this keytab file and provide access to the LDAP service. The keytab file needs to be copied to the /etc location from where the SLAPD service tries to read the content. So in my case, the LDAP service is running on ubescratch, so I'm going to copy it into the LDAP server, that is ubescratch, at the following location. So let me just first copy the content into the temp folder. So my keytab file is copied into the temp folder. So you can just look at the temp folder for krb5 keytab file. So that is present. Now we will copy this to the etc folder on the LDAP server. So here, like I'm copying it into the etc folder. So now we are good with the keytab file which is required for the LDAP service. Now let us go into our next step, that is step 5. So here, like there is a note I have mentioned. So in case like you are using the SASL based SASL based slapd.conf file with the keytab file location and the mechanism that it needs to use, the client will be the server will be trying to search for the keytab file in the following location, and the mechanism that it is going to support or authenticate with is going to be the GSSAPI. So this is an optional thing that I have mentioned in case like you are using the customized location for the keytab file. Now let us go into our next step, that is step 5, add LDAP user principal. So here like we are going to create another principle in the Kerberos V file system, that is a user principle that will be used for authentication using the SASL with GSSAPI authentication mechanism, and this user is further going to be converted into an LDAP DN, and it will be used for LDAP authorization that we will see further in our next steps. So first let us create this user principle. So we are going to use the same keyadmin.local interface. So let me go to my ureplica server again, clear my screen and launch the keyadmin.local. And now here like we are going to create this principle with the user UID mat@stack.com, which is the rel. So now the principle has been created. So we have the principle in our list of principles. So this is there. So we are good. So now let us go to our next step, that is obtaining the Kerberos ticket for LDAP user to authenticate. So this is step 6, wherein so we have created the LDAP user. Basically what I mean is we have created a principle that we will be using in order to authenticate with the LDAP server. So the first step before authenticating with the LDAP server is we need to get a ticket granting ticket for that user. So what we need to do is we need to do kinit with that user. So now let us go to our use-scratch server. So here like what we are going to do is we are going to do kinit with the user ID mat. Provide the password for mat, and now if you list the tickets that are available in our client system using the klist, you will see like it has received the ticket granting ticket, that is TGT. So this is the ticket that the client or the LDAP client uses in order to further receive the service ticket, that is LDAP service ticket, from the ticket granting server. So we have now received the TGT ticket, that is a ticket granting ticket, that is like a passport which we can further use in order to get multiple service tickets with which the client wants to communicate. Like basically each service ticket is mapped to a particular service that we want to access. So now let me clear my screen and go to the documentation. So we have initialized the UID and received the ticket granting ticket, and we have seen it using the klist. Now let us go to the slapd section, wherein we will try to configure our slapd server with the SASL authentication mechanism support, and we are also going to configure the slapd.conf file such that it maps the SASL based authentication ID to the LDAP distinguisher name for further communication. So on the LDAP server, we first need to install the following prerequisite libraries that are required for the SASL framework support. So we are going to install, this is already installed on my machine, but you can just go ahead and install if it is if they are not present on your server. So this is already installed. Let me clear my screen. So once that is installed, like you can just go and download the OpenLDAP package and extract it into the following location and try to configure with the following options. So this this LDAP server configuration that I'm using is basically a continuation from my previous blog, wherein we have seen like how we can secure the communication between the OpenLDAP server and the client using the TLS. So this TLS configuration settings that I have used, like you can just see this blog for more information, but I am using the same server or the same configuration. I am extending it to support the SASL framework. So let me go to the OpenLDAP package where I have extracted and try to configure with TLS and SASL framework support. So the configuration is done. Let us run make depend. Now run the make to compile the actual OpenLDAP package. Now let us install the package using sudo make install. So now the OpenLDAP package has been installed in my system. So let me clear my screen and go to the documentation. So now the next important thing that we need to do is the configuration of the slapd server using the slapd.ld file. In this file, like what we are going to add is the important section related to the SASL authentication, wherein we are going to use this OLC authorization regular expression that is used by the authentication framework, that is in this case the SASL framework, to convert the simple usernames that are provided such as provided by the SASL system. We will look at that example, and which are converted into the LDAP DN for further authorization process. So let us see like what that configuration is in this file. So let me open this file. So this is the slapd.configuration database file that we are going to load. So here I am having the TLS configuration, but you can just look at my previous blog as I mentioned for this TLS settings and the certificate files that we have created. And the important section over here is the SASL configuration. So here is the authorization regular expression that I have that I am using in order to map this UID with the following CN auth, the SASL authentication ID, and how we are mapping that UID to the LDAP query. So this is LDAP query that is going to be run in the backend on the LDAP server in order to identify whether that UID is present or not. So in that case, like if the LDAP query is able to find that UID, we will be able to authenticate with that. The authorization will be successful, and you will be able to get the correct details about that UID. So like that authorized ID, I can say. So now let us go further down. So all other configuration is going to be the same as we get it from the default. And here, like I have added a couple of access ACL access control restriction directives. So these are pretty much the same like we did in the TLS configuration block. So let me clear my screen. Now let us go to our article and go further down. So here, like what we are going to do is we are going to now load that slapd.configuration file that is available in the LT file. So now let us run this slap add with the following options in order to load the configuration database. So our configuration database is loaded. Let me clear my screen, and now let us start our slapd service in the trace mode. So -d trace. So we are running this with the -d trace option just to see like how that mapping or conversion happens from the SASL authentication ID to the LDAP distinguisher name. So for that purpose only we are using this trace method. Otherwise you can just ignore that option. So I am running the slapd daemon with the trace option enabled. So this is like the trace option is enabled. Now let me get another session of the Yoke Scratch. So here like what we are going to do is we are going to load the LDAP server with the following directory tree. So I'm just using this directory tree. So this is the same LDAP data that we have used in our previous blog. So I'm using the same thing in order to load it into the LDAP server. So how we are going to load is we are going to use the same command, that is slapd. We are going to use the LDAP add utility. So here is the utility that we are going to use. So let me go and run this. So here we are using LDAP add with simple authentication and passing the bind dn with the password that we are going to enter, and we are trying to load this LD file which contains our directory tree. So let us try to enter the bind dn password for manager, that is secret. So here like we need to first we need to pass the LDAP password, that is secret, and we have added the entries for the LDAP directory tree. So let me clear my screen, and now let us go into our documentation. So we have added the directory tree. So the last step that we are going to do is search the LDAP directory with the GSSAPI authentication mechanism. So here, so first thing is like we have already so we already have a ticket granting ticket that is for the user ID MAT. So if you look at that Yoke Scratch server, so you can see like you have already the ticket granting ticket for the user MAT. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to do an LDAP query using the, so this is the LDAP query. Let me copy this one first. So here like what we are asking the LDAP search client is we want to use the GSSAPI authentication mechanism in order to authenticate and authorize the user ID and search the LDAP directory with the UID map filter. So when it finds any UID with MAT in the LDAP directory, it is going to provide us with the details of that user. So this is the basic query that we are using. So when this LDAP search happens, the LDAP client tool will be using the ticket granting ticket to send a ticket granting service request to the ticket granting server. So So whatever ticket granting ticket we have, the LDAP client is going to use that ticket, granting ticket, and it is going to ask for a ticket granting service from the ticket granting server, and the ticket granting server is going to respond back with the LDAP service principal ticket, which is valid for a particular period of time. In this case, it is valid for 24 hours, so that the client, that is LDAP search client, whenever it wants to communicate with the LDAP server, it can communicate with that ticket. For more details on the information on the Kerberos protocol message exchange, like how they are encrypted and what type of encryption they are using, and what is the session key that is shared between the client and the authentication server, and the client and the application server, all those details and the protocol communication can be understood properly using this Kerberos, the definitive guide by Jason Garman. So you can just go ahead and purchase this book or download this book in order to understand more about the Kerberos protocol and how this ticketing service or the ticket granting service is established or happening in the client server model. So now the LDAP search client can use the LDAP service until the Kerberos LDAP service ticket is valid. So first, for that, what we need to do is we need to get that ticket. So we haven't received that ticket yet. So here I'm actually using a older screenshot, but we haven't received that ticket yet. But we will receive that ticket when we try to do this LDAP search. Okay, so I already have it copied. So let me do a search. So you can see the LDAP search has used the SASL GSSAPI authentication system, and this is the username that the SASL framework uses. It basically uses the UID mat and appends the realm, which is the Kerberos realm, with which the user ID is authenticated. So now the important thing that we need to understand is using this trace. So let me go to this trace. Yes. So this is the. So let me just get to that place wherein the conversion happens. Yes, so this is the SASL ID. So UID map GN is equal to GSSAPI, CN is equal to GSSAPI, CN is equal to auth, and this is being converted to the DN. So basically we are converting the SASL name to the following LDAP query. This is LDAP query. So basically whatever UID that we have passed, so this is the UID with which we have already authenticated using the key in it. So SASL framework is going to use that UID which is for the GSSAPI authentication, and it is going to map that UID to the LDAP query. So this is the query. So once the LDAP query is passed and it is queried, so this whole thing is done using that OLC authorization regular expression that we have defined in the slapd.ldap file. So when this LDAP query happens on the server, it is able to match with that UID, and it is going to provide us with the response. So in this response, like you can see, the UID mat is the DN that is retrieved. So one thing to note over here is, before the LDAP search gets this entry, So the SASL authentication has already completed, and it has received the service principal, that is LDAP service principal over here. So this LDAP service principal is further used by the SASL, further used by the client in order to communicate with the LDAP server and get this details. And here you can see that it has also extracted or retrieved the user password, because UID math is the user that is mapped and who is actually trying to retrieve his details, and from the ACLs that we have defined, that UID has access to get the password or the attribute related to the user password from that search. So that is how like you will be able to receive the user password. But in case like if you are doing UID search for, let's say, another user, you will be able to retrieve the details, the entry details, but you will not be able to fetch the password for this user, because you are not authorized to get the password for that another user. So basically you are authenticated using the map user ID, but you are not authorized to get the password details for another entry in the LDAP. So that is how the authentication and authorization system works. So this is all I wanted to show you in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you all. Thanks for watching this video, and you guys have a great day.